another episode of Coin Edition's Web3 interview, where we bring you the latest news and insights from the world of blockchain and crypto. I'm your host, Veronica, and joining us today is a very special guest, Mr. Robert Quartly-Janeiro, Chief Strategy Officer at Bitrue. He is here with us to share his insights on the role of cryptocurrencies in the evolving macroeconomic landscape. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Robert. How are you doing?
Veronica, hey, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It's really great to having you today with us. So let's dive right into our discussion with my first question. First, given the recent economic events like inflation concerns and geopolitical shifts, how do you assess the current macroeconomic landscape?
Yes, it's a fairly mixed picture out there. The Eurozone economies have been weakening. The German economy in particular, which is obviously the powerhouse of the European Union, has been seeing some falls, and the construction sector there is struggling. In the US, you've got again a problem in the real estate sector, commercial real estate, and then the impact that you've had globally of rising rates, rising interest rates, and strong inflation, which although is decreasing, is still fairly strong. I mean, in the UK, the inflation rate there is pretty heavy. I think it's like nearly 8%. So you've got a very mixed bag. And although the price of food, the price of oil is going down, and that's to be welcomed. Broadly speaking, you're looking at quite a mixed picture, and you're seeing that translate through where equity markets are. People are buying equity markets, and they're doing fairly well. But at the same time, obviously, the rate of return you can now get from bonds is strong. So I think what you're seeing globally is really quite a mixed picture, with pockets of question marks. So the UK and the EU are definitely some question marks around, will there be a recession there in those places? Whereas the US, Japan, the Middle East seems to be, not recession proof, but doing really well. And therefore, you've got this mixed bag. And I suppose it's interesting, the G20 finance ministers are meeting at the moment in India. So, they're discussing, where things are going and what their outlook is. At a sort of at a micro level, what you're seeing is people are being squeezed by the cost of living, and then obviously, how the cost of debt is affecting them.
Mm-hmm. So, on the other hand, how do you see these events now affecting the crypto market and the adoption of cryptocurrencies?
So I think the risk to crypto obviously is that disposable incomes go down due to inflation, and therefore what has been seen predominantly as sort of discretionary assets. There's less buying there. You're not really seeing that at the moment. The market's moved up in recent weeks, but I think in a broader sense, that's probably the biggest caveat, or the biggest bump macroeconomically is how does disposable income affect that? But then obviously now you've also got the introduction of much larger institutional investors coming into the crypto market, so that will have an impact too on where things go. I think you've got an era of sort of cheap money ending. The last decade, money's been sub 2%. It's now 5, 6, 7, 8%. So that obviously has an impact. And obviously what you've seen within crypto itself is, because of the issues of the last 12, 18 months, there are far fewer initial coin offerings. So only really the best projects and ideas are actually coming to market. So you're seeing far fewer initial coin offerings, which is frankly a good thing for quality reasons, coming to market that people can buy. So those are some of the factors that you're seeing.
Okay, thanks for that. So as cryptocurrencies are increasingly integrated in the global financial system, could you elaborate on their role on the macroeconomic context?
So the role, I mean, no one's quite established, even academically, the sort of the link between crypto and macroeconomics is still fairly new field. It's not been around for that long, less than years. So there's still a lot of research going on into how the two interact. Obviously, at one level, the crypto industry is an industry, so it invests, it has jobs, it does research and development. It's looking at things, innovating, buying. So there clearly is a macroeconomic impact on some level because you're talking about money movements and companies. So I think with that, those are some of the elements. There's also this, how does it affect globally versus nationally? Crypto has done very well in emerging markets where central banks are seen as less secure and where governments are seen as less secure. And people have put their trust into Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies instead of their local currency, their local fiat currency. So I'm thinking, Nigeria here is one of those examples that people have bought, they've gone into the crypto digital asset world and then sold their fiat. So that's some element to it. I think there's a couple of things there. The other issue you have is obviously balancing, frankly, what people can get. Is it better to be in fiat? Is it better to be in crypto? If you're looking at it from an investment perspective, if you're looking at it from a utility and adoption point of view, then there are obviously macroeconomic forces there too. But it's quite a complex field. Yes. How does the macroeconomic environment affect crypto, and then how does crypto affect the macroeconomic environment? In some ways, if you look at it from raw numbers point of view, the crypto market is worth 1.2, 1.3 trillion US dollars. And obviously, at its peak, it was over 3 trillion. So from its historic high, it's obviously not yet reached, peak to trough. It's not yet back to peak. So it will be interesting to see how that develops over time, as either investors return or don't return to crypto, and on to the impact that institutional investors will have as well. And just going back to the number of coins that you have, 20,000 coins available, obviously that spreads that market over a huge number of individual coins. So fewer coins would mean that market should appreciate, because of the rarity and fewer coins being around. So those are some thoughts of how the macroeconomic environment affects crypto, and crypto affects the macroeconomic environment.
So with macroeconomic factors making it challenging to preserve, save, and grow one's wealth, how can cryptocurrencies offer a solution to this?
Yeah, so cryptocurrencies offer a number of things. So in some senses, it's about being uncorrelated, although Bitcoin has some correlation to equity markets. So it's worth noting that there is some correlation there. But broader than that, if you go into other cryptocurrencies, you'll find that they're fairly uncorrelated to what's going on in equity markets or bond markets. So uncorrelation is one of those aspects. Obviously, it's an alternative asset class. In the sense of thinking about what it is and standing back from it. So there's that element to it too. For some, it's seen as an inflation hedge. That becomes quite a complex piece, in the way that some value investors would invest in stocks that see themselves as being inflation hedging because they raise the price by inflation and therefore pass it on so that the company still makes the same amount of money. So it's there's depending on how one looks at it, it can be uncorrelated, it can be diversification, it can be alternative asset class, across that remit. So those are some of the aspects that affect it. Obviously, its price swings and volatility are a consideration for some people. I think thinking to Bitcoin for a moment, it had a low peak late last year and then has since recovered to a sort of a fairly stable price around $30,000 per coin. But it's been fairly stagnant. It's moved sort of 29 to 31, not much more than that. So it really depends on when you came into that market. See, did you buy in November last year when it was $18,000, or have you bought at 30 and it's now only sort of trading at 30, 31? That probably isn't offering, that latter position isn't really offering you a lot of inflation hedging. So it really depends on when you got into it, as to when to the effect that one has. I think there's another example here, which is obviously crypto ETFs. Having the returns from lots of different cryptocurrencies and obviously spreading that risk is something that the likes of BlackRock, the likes of Vanguard, the likes of State Street and others have been looking at and offering to their clients, is spreading the risk and obviously the returns across ETF products, which they've been doing. So I think that's one way of doing it, and obviously depending on the country that someone finds themselves in, crypto offers a return for currency debasement, and the way that fiat interacts with it. Frankly, in the rate environment that we are in, higher rates, you're seeing more sovereign defaults. You're likely to see more company defaults as well because the cost of debt is that much higher. So you would it's a way of getting around that and being tied to a particular fiat currency, as we know.
I actually have just one last question. This is regarding Ripple, the recent case. Okay. Why did Bitrue refuse to delist XRP in its platform amid the legal battles? And also, in any way, how did Bitrue's commitment to XRP during these legal challenges impact the exchange? Were there any negative effects during that time, or did it help the exchange?
Yeah, so I mean, the firm's decision to keep XRP Ripple listed is really regarding how Ripple has developed over time, or XRP has developed over time, and Bitrue has obviously used Ripple throughout as one of its base currencies, and I think the firm today is one of the largest traders in XRP globally. There was a recent statistic saying that 800 million US dollars of crypto has been exchanged in the last few days. So, what Bitrue has done is really position itself as one of the leaders in XRP trading. That's shown itself across both, being a base currency pair for for the exchange, and also the exchange's insurance funds are in XRP too. So, the Bitrue has a long-standing commitment towards Ripple and XRP, and the two, the project and Bitrue as a firm, have had a relationship for a long time. I think it was one of the first 5-6 cryptocurrencies that were listed on the exchange. So, and now you're looking at 550, 600. So that just shows how long that relationship has been there for over 5 years. So I think that's, in terms of the impact that's had, well, I guess it's made Bitrue one of those more important places to trade. And thinking about where Bitrue's customers are, Asia, Europe, the case was very much a US case. So if you're not in the US, then you can carry on serving people who aren't in the US. So I think that's another factor. I don't think it's necessarily been a risk for Bitrue to do that, although you may see differently. But the firm has had a long-standing commitment to Ripple and XRP, and I think vice versa, I guess.
Okay, so thank you very much for those amazing insights, Mr. Robert. Before we wrap up, do you have any parting words for our viewers?
Well, I know. I wish everyone a good week, and keep doing what you're doing, and look after yourselves and don't work too hard. That's probably some of the things I would share. But no, thanks for having me on. It's always good to see you, Veronica. Yes. And I think that just going back to your original question, the broader macroeconomic picture is an interesting time. And it's got some green shoots, and it's also got some red areas. But I think, broadly speaking, I think it will be okay.
Yeah,
thanks very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you with us today. That brings us to the end of this episode of Coin Edition's Web3 interview. If you want to see more interviews, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, this is Veronica.